On today's episode, I have my good friend Miss Kristen Chica Torres.
Had to slide that in
I
there,
had to
huh?
slide that in there. I met Kristen through her brother, who is a good friend of mine. He was on the UFC podcast, Mr. John Chico Torres, which
Oh,
is the whole Chico
yes.
Chica
Yep.
kind of
And
thing that
you
happens.
can't forget Lil Cheek down at the bottom there.
No, we cannot. We cannot. So, she just got back from a foreign place way across the sea from Thailand, actually.
Hey, there you go.
Um, so just a quick little backstory on that and how we kind of, I would say, grew more like a personable friendship and relationship over that course and period of
Mm-hmm.
time was again, I met her through her brother, and we actually would just go down to where she was at college to party and stay at her dorm, and it was a good place to stay. And
Oh, man.
but after that, the Lord really stepped in for her, gave her some convictions, and the
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, she was off to Thailand and doing ministry, and still doing that to this day.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. How was the flight
Yeah.
back?
You know what? Actually, it wasn't that bad.
Really?
I took a different route this time. So usually I go stop through the Middle East. I'll stop at Dubai and then go from Dubai
Hmm.
straight to Bangkok, which are longer flights, but less, like, you only have like 2 flights there.
Yeah.
So this time, it wasn't safe to go through that area. So I went Bangkok. I drove down to Bangkok because there was no flights to get there. So my journey started off with driving 8 hours to Bangkok, and then wasn't safe anywhere to stay in Bangkok.
Hmm.
So I ended up just staying at the airport overnight.
Okay.
It was so cold.
One of those airport sleepers.
Oh, it was great. It was a great time. Yeah. And then, yeah, so I just went Bangkok to Tokyo, then Tokyo to Texas, Texas to Philadelphia. And I was like
Nice.
3 days past meeting any Olympians. So I was like, man, I was like, this is it. I'm going to meet Suni Lee from the gymnastics team. We're going to become best friends. And it's going to be great. And
that's gonna be
then, yeah, it didn't happen.
That's
All my
so
hopes and dreams.
that's
just
so
crushed
funny
out.
the way that they connect flights. You know, like when I went to
Mhm.
Mexico, you would think like, okay, I'm leaving Pennsylvania, I'm going straight down to Mexico.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
went Pennsylvania to Detroit to Texas to Mexico.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was just the oddest like way that they had it set
what
up
a
and
route.
everything. But whatever. Anyway, flights are weird. So we're
Yes, they
living
are.
in a weird time right now, as everybody may know. You may not know, but
Yeah.
there are some things going on over in Thailand that I want to get into eventually, but I don't really want to focus on that for the main part because you have a pretty, as we were talking earlier over breakfast, very good breakfast actually from Cafe 18 in Lancaster. If you
Yeah,
guys
10
haven't
out of
tried.
10 recommend.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you
That's a
guys
good one.
haven't tried it, whew, good stuff, especially
Yeah.
that rosemary bread. So I wanted you to come on to kind of piece together your testimony for people because it truly is amazing because you grew up, I would say, in the church, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
Yeah.
And then obviously college happened and a bunch of other things happened and how you got back into ministry in Thailand. So for the folks at home, why don't you kind of just explain a little bit of you growing up, like what that was like, and kind of where the switch happened, where I don't want to say walk away, because we had conversations when we were partying too about
Yeah.
God and stuff. So I knew that, like, and this is when I was going through
Mm-hmm.
a complete time of, I don't even want to say confusion. I was just like, I didn't care. I just wanted to party and drink and all that. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. That was pretty much it. So.
So how did that
Good
all
focus.
start for you?
Oh, yeah.
Where does Kristen start?
Where do I begin, man? Well, you kind of helped lead into that. Yeah, I grew up in the church. My parents served with kind of like foster care. I would say more of like a group home ministry for here in Lancaster called Christ Home for Children. So they were caretakers for kids from drug and alcohol abuse families. So they would take them in. Setup was like foster care, but the only thing was that my parents could never actually adopt any of the kids.
Okay.
So the goal was always to have them either reunited with their families or be adopted by other families,
Yeah.
Christian-based families. So yeah, ever since I was 10, that was most of my growing up was there. We had kids from all ages, from as young as like 6 months to as old as like 16 years. And we would have different sets of siblings. And so, yeah, I mean, when Chico and I were still living at home, I remember there was one point where it was like the three of us, and then my parents had 10 kids that they were taking care of. So there was 13 kids
All
that
in
my
one
parents
house.
were taking care of in a house at one time. And it's like my mom's always cooking for a small army. And yeah, just all the craziness that comes with that. But we always had full teams for basketball games and kickball out in the front yard. So I'm glad that my parents are pretty athletic. So
Yeah.
summer times, like after dinner, we'd be out there playing in the field, some sort of game until we were called in for bed. So yeah, it was a good time, but it also, like, looking back now, it was a great experience of God just showing me at an early age, giving me a heart for kids, and especially a heart for kids with special needs. And yeah, I started gymnastics when I was 8, and then been doing that. Actually, it really started when I was 6, but started competing when I was 8, and then grew up here in Lancaster, going to Prestige and going through the levels, going to competitions and things like that. And so, yeah, my parents always had us growing up in the church. We got connected pretty early on, and my parents served in the youth group. My mom taught missionaries. My dad would serve as an usher, and so Wednesdays we're at church, Sundays we're at church pretty much all day. It just varied. So I just always grew up thinking that's the thing to do. Like you just knew Wednesdays and Sundays you're going to church. And so I was also like pretty shy because I was homeschooled all my life. And so outside of anything was gymnastics was my identity, truly. I would say, at a young age. And so it took up all of my time. I would train 35, 40 hours a week and traveling, for competitions. And so, it was outside. It was wake up, school, practice, go to church or don't, and then just come back. Or I would find every excuse on a Sunday morning of like, oh, I'm so sore from the workout and I don't think I can go today. And so, just trying to be a little stinker in that. But, so that was mostly growing up was there. And so I knew of God, surely. I knew of Jesus. I heard all the Sunday school Bible stories and growing up in youth group. I didn't really attend youth group a lot just because of conflict with my practice schedule and when youth group would be. I would never make it there in time, or I was just too tired after a long practice. So I didn't really get much connected. I had a few friends, surely, but most of it was just all based around gymnastics. So, that was most of my high school years. Then also, at the time, I also started babysitting kids with special needs. So I would start babysitting brother and sister duo. One had autism. The other one had some pretty high anxiety. So it was, it was just a good learning experience. And I would babysit them all the way up until I graduated high school, and still pretty connected with their mom. And so that was a lot of experience. And then going into college, I had actually never officially been in a classroom setting until I got to college. So going to university was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? And so I was like, okay, what is the easiest way that I can fit in and just look normal and not stick out like a homeschooler? And just, so the easiest way to get into people getting to know you and just like looking like you're fitting in was doing what everybody else was doing. And at the time, everybody else was partying and drinking and just getting into that scene. So that's what I did. I didn't go to a Christian university. I went to a secular one. I was fortunate enough to do gymnastics in college, and so I was able to get recruited for Westchester, and I was able to be on a team there for
Yeah.
a full 4 years. And so once I transitioned into college, I started out I was kind of still undecided. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I definitely wanted to do something with kids. And so it was either between social work and teaching. So, but growing up with my parents and in the job that they were doing in foster care, just too many times seeing just how didn't really like how the state system would run things sometimes, and just seeing kids just go back with parents for a time being and then get put back into the system, and just seeing it cycle around. It's like, I don't think I can do this. I would get too emotionally invested. I would be like, these parents would get 3 strikes and you're out, and that's it. So I was like, okay, maybe teaching. I do really enjoy working with kids, and so so I just went in. First as just an elementary education major, and then my academic advisor was like, hey, since you have experience with kids with special needs, why don't you do a dual degree? It's only an extra year. And since I transferred into my university, so I still had 4 years of eligibility once I got there. So I was like, oh, okay, that would actually, then I could do gymnastics all 4 years because I have that 5th year. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? It's only 3 extra classes, and So I was like, okay, well. So I started dual majoring and did my first special ed class, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was my first experience of just going into an observation. I got to observe in an autism center, and I was like, I would just want to stay here all day long. I'm done. I'm sold. Just let me live here. And so, it was a great experience. Loved my classes, but still was very much into the party scene. And, if we weren't competing on a weekend, we were going out. And so got connected with different sports teams. We made friends with all of them, and we would just all, just start partying together.
Yeah.
So my freshman and sophomore year, we're pretty much just trying to fit in, and so that was the only way I really knew how. I always knew, like, oh man, in the back of my mind, I would just have these moments of like great conviction of, what you're doing is wrong. It's sinful. Like this is not getting you into heaven. And I was just like, oh, but everybody else is doing it, so it's fine. Like, God still loves me. And so there would be times where I would like say the prayer of salvation that we memorized in Sunday school, like, just to make sure, let me just pray this real quick and then I should be fine. But it was never sincere, and I just never really fully understood what it was like to have my own personal relationship with God and what that even looked like. And so during those college years, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, because there was my junior year was a pretty rough year. I would say that's like really where I hit rock bottom. I ended up having 2 injuries that year that both required surgery. So I had an ankle injury that started it.
This was from gymnastics.
Yeah. So I had an ankle injury. Didn't really think anything of it until I was like, man, my ankle is just like a lot sore than usual because I have pretty weak ankles. So my trainer was like, okay, if you can make it to winter break, we'll get you an x-ray. But by fall break, I was like, man, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so we ended up getting an x-ray early, found out that I'd been practicing on a fractured ankle that I should not have been practicing on. She's like, you need to get off your foot right now. Yeah. And so it ended up tearing a ligament. So I had surgery winter break, but it was a quick recovery, only 6 weeks. But the only event I could really practice with having a boot on my foot was bars. So I would just go and swing bars for like 4 hours a day. Yeah. Or do a whole bunch of conditioning. So
build them tries and buys.
Yeah, get in those.
You're
games,
lucky you didn't. You're lucky you didn't do a McGregor and just snap your ankle right in half.
Man.
Oh, jeez. Anyway,
I didn't see that. I don't
think
I need to see that.
No, you don't need to see that. That was pretty. Anyway,
awful. But I mean, it escalates from there though for me. So then, because I was only swinging bars, that time period. There was one day at practice, I was swinging and I ended up dislocating my shoulder. Oof. So in that time frame, then I get to go to the ER, go see an orthopedic. I gotta have another surgery. So it's like winter break, have my ankle surgery, recovering from that. And then spring break, or supposed to go away, like have a week off from school. I end up going to have surgery for my shoulder. So within a 3-month span, I had to have 2 surgeries. Jeez. And that just really just escalated the downhill rock bottom slope for me. And it was a really hard year. I was just really angry.
Well, that puts a lot of mental strain on you too.
I
think like most injuries, people don't realize it's not just the physical. You know, there's a lot of mental stuff. I had a buddy of mine on here that played semi-pro football, and he's had like 27 knee surgeries because of what happened, from then.
Right.
And for him, he's just like, the pain is there. Yeah, the pain is unbearable, but the mental striving of wow, I can't really do normal things anymore because of this.
Yeah, and just having to be dependent on other people now to help you with things. I remember having this honking sling on my arm. I'd walk into class and just had to plop it on the table, and I'm like, I'm so sorry for the person sitting next to me. It's all up in their space, and it was just it's hard. And I had a concussion the year before, and so it's just I could not catch a break. I was like, God, when is it gonna be my year? When is it gonna be my time to thrive and really shine through and prove myself to my team that I'm reliable as a gymnast and could be able to put me in a pressure situation or put me in the lineup and know that I'm going to hit. And so, it was just that rocky mentality just really got to me. And so towards the end of that year, I was just so angry that my team, we were all just really not unified as a team. There was a lot of drama that was going on. My coach and I ended up having a falling out at the end of the year that was pretty significant. And I honestly thought I was going to lose my spot on the team. And she was like, if we don't work through these things, then you're not welcome back in the fall.
Oof.
So that was just well, then screw this. Screw school, screw gymnastics. I'm done with this anyways. I only have 1 more year left, so why not just quit now? And I was like, never mind. I'm just going to give up on everything. There's no point anymore. So it was just that mentality of whatever, I don't even care, because I couldn't see anything past that. I couldn't see I didn't see any good that was going to come of it. I didn't have any joy going on. And so it was a really dark time for me. And so one of the requirements for me, I had to go through a book with my coach over the summer, and I had to do physical therapy and had to get at least 90% of my range of motion back in order to be back on the team and stuff. So I just remember, I walk into my physical therapist's room and to get our initial eval done, and I just look at her and I was like, you're wasting your time here. I'm going to quit gymnastics anyway, so there's no point. And first of all, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a brat. Oh my gosh. Every time I see her, I'm like, I'm so sorry for how I treated you when we first met. But man, she was amazing. She challenged me. She was like, give me to the end of the summer. If I can't get your shoulder back to 90%, then you can quit. And I was like, okay, fine. And so then the stubbornness in me is like, oh, well, now I need to show her off. So so we just start working together, and we'll be there, and she's stretching my arm out and things like that. And she just starts telling me these stories. And she would just start telling me about these times where her and her husband would go, she would call them vacations. And she was like, yeah, so my husband and I, we went to this country and we just helped build a well, or we helped build a house, and the whole time I'm thinking, I was like, why the heck would you go on a vacation to do work? That's the opposite of what you're supposed to be
opposite of what you're supposed
doing.
to do.
Yeah, go to a beach somewhere. But one day it just kind of clicked for me, and it was just I just straight up asked her, I was like, are you a Christian? And she's like, yeah, I am. And she's like, are these vacations you're talking about mission trips? And she's like, yeah, they are. And so
this was your physical therapist?
My physical therapist, yeah. Gosh, she's amazing. so we really just got to start talking about it, and she just started speaking truth into me, and she just loved me where I was at. Like in my darkest times, she loved me where I was at. And she never judged me. She never
said stop doing this or
yeah,
that.
she
Like,
never was like, yeah, I mean, this is worthless. Like we shouldn't even be wasting our time. Like she and looked forward to days where I would come in and have therapy with her, and there would be times where it would just be the two of us, and she would just, it was just so encouraging. And I was like, this person cannot have this much joy in her life. Like that's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she just really encouraged me to stick with it. And there was like, that's when like the seed started being planted into my life. And so we just had really good conversations, and then that led to me like, okay, maybe I do need to work things out with my coach. And so went through the book with my coach. We had some really hard conversations, but she was also open and really forgiving, which I didn't realize. Like I'm one that would hold grudges. And so I was like, there's no way she's gonna forgive me for all the crap that I gave her that year. And I just remember there was one time we were talking, we met, I drove out to the university over the summer, we had a meeting, and she was like, you know, I see there's work being done in you, and I want you to know, like, I forgive you. And I was like,
wow.
I should be the one that I like I'm asking for forgiveness. And so we both like had a great conversation. We're both crying, and like she tells me she's a believer, and we then just like start talking about faith. Also, I had all these questions like, okay, what does that even look like, and where do you go to church, what do you like, so many questions. And so it was just a really good healing summer of I was able to heal my physical body. I started healing my spiritual body. And so going back to university that fall for my senior year, I was like, okay, I have these like Christian women around me. They seem to be having a lot of joy in their life and really loving what they're doing. Yeah. I want that. And so I found out of the campus ministry that was going on at Westchester, showed up to a couple meetings, got connected with the head leader there, and she also was just a significant woman that ended up being my mentor for the year. Oh, wow. And yeah, so that fall semester, I went to church with her and then rededicated my life to Christ. Yeah. That fall semester, and it was amazing. And I was still just like,
that was your senior year, right?
Yeah. My senior year of college. And yeah, I was like, okay, so I've said this prayer like 1,000 times. Now, what does this actually look like? What does it look like to have a relationship with God? And so it was great to have these wisdom women in my life that were able to just walk with me during that time. And I was still like, even before that, I remember I was still pretty heavily into the party scene and drinking. And in between, right before I had my ankle surgery, I had my 21st birthday. And I was like, yeah. I mean, you know, you were there. You were carrying me home after that night. Good times. With my brother and all of our friends just coming up for the weekend and ripping way too many shots.
Way too many shots. Way too many shots. I don't think I was ever... No. Probably Westchester Homecoming was when I was the drunkest down there. Oof. But, yeah.
Nope. 21st birthday was 21st birthday was definitely, yeah. You guys did me dirty. Thank you for that.
First off, you did yourself dirty because you knew it was coming and you didn't prepare yourself. You didn't drink water. You didn't.
I'm sorry. You weren't there the whole day before.
Not the whole day
well
before,
prepared.
But here's the problem.
Staying hydrated.
You were the day before, but then the day of, you started at like 9 a.m. in the morning.
No, I actually didn't.
I thought you did.
No, I waited the whole day until until everyone got there.
Until we went out.
Yeah. And then that's when I started. Jeez. And then it's just,
maybe that was us that started.
Yeah, you guys started before me, but
because we were playing Black, Red, Purple for a couple hours. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, enough about that story.
Oh man, good times. But yeah,
I will say this though. During those times that you're talking about with like your darkest hours and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Really, probably, I'd say what, in your sophomore and junior year was when I started coming down and getting to know you
Mm-hmm.
and hanging out there at the dorm and everything. And during that time, though, God was still working through you because you were so hospitable through that too. Not just with us, but with like a lot of people coming through, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you truly cared. It wasn't because you were just trying to be the cool person that had people over. You're just like, no, like I want you to be safe. Like, you
Yeah.
can stay here, you can stay here. I remember one night your brother and I randomly
Oh
he
no.
he texted me and said, "Hey, I have to run down to Westchester and give Chica a it was either a charger or something that you forgot up at the house." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll run down with you real quick and everything." So we go we go down there to give you this, and then we went out to the bar with another mutual friend of ours. I remember we watched the Eagles game. The next thing I know, I wake up the next morning on your floor, like in your bedroom with him and then you, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like what? Like how did that happen over that such short? Because we didn't get down there till like midnight or something.
Right.
I'm like, how did that possibly happen
Oh
over that
man.
short little period? Do you remember that?
No, I don't
We
remember
Yeah, it
that.
was. Oh my gosh, I forget when that was. It was years ago, but
Yeah.
I just woke up and I'm just like, what the hell happened?
Oh man,
Anyway,
too many good times. I
yeah,
remember I would wake up and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, everybody's still sleeping. This is great." I'll go out and I would go run out to Wawa and get bagels and coffee and just make sure you guys like.
yep,
I knew the hangovers were coming, so I was like, "All right,
yeah.
they're gonna need their
Oh my.
their
I will say something.
morning breakfast."
I don't regret any of those times because they were a lot of fun. But now I kind of like look back on there and I'm just like, oh, like some of
Yeah,
that stuff was a little bit of, ugh.
I definitely learned a lot during
Yes,
those
yes.
seasons, and I'm like, I see people now, and I'm like, how?
I know.
I'm like,
Well, I even look at people now that go out to like Lancaster City, like because sometimes I'll
mm,
have to drive through and pick some stuff up or like go drop some people off, and I'm like the lines out of the bar and all the
yeah,
people stumbling, and I'm like, that was me, and
mm-hmm,
I'm just like I can remember, I remember back to those times, and I'm like, I really wasn't having fun. I just did it to appease
mm-hmm,
other people.
mm-hmm,
It's like where that whole like what we were talking about earlier with like the
right,
whole
just
brain like connectivity thing is like, oh
fitting in, yeah,
yeah, I was just like, wow. So you said earlier about how when you were younger, that's when you started watching after special kids, special needs kids, and everything, and that's
mm-hmm,
kind of like where you got a taking to with that as well. Started gymnastics at an early
mm-hmm,
age. So, like you mentioned, with the Olympics that just came around, a lot of light was shined on the Olympic team,
yeah,
things that were happening there. What is like gymnastics to you? Because it's a lot more than people just doing flips and trying to just like
mm-hmm,
twirl around and do all that backflips and stuff like that because it's physically demanding, but more so I believe it's
oh yeah,
mentally demanding. And the team that you had, I met a lot of your teammates, in the dorms and just the competitions that you were at, a couple competitions that
mm-hmm,
your brother and I went to see. And there's like a really, I think there's a special bond between any sports team,
mm-hmm,
whether that be basketball, football, baseball, soccer, whatever it is. But there was something different with the gymnastic team. It was like a well-oiled machine. How you guys were just like so tight and pretty much lived
yeah,
together, did everything together. So like, what
yeah.
what is gymnastics to you? Why was it such a big thing in your life? And how are you carrying that forward today?
Oof, man, that's a loaded question
Isn't
there,
it?
man. Can we break that down a little bit? Okay.
Part one.
No, gymnastics. I mean, again, I started at such an early age, and just realizing that I was good at it. I mean, I would just do some rec classes, and then one of the head coaches approached my dad and was like, "Hey, your daughter's actually pretty good. Have you ever thought about competing?" And so I like started off. I started training with the team, and growing up, it's very much more of an individualized sport because you're competing against each other. Yeah, I mean, there's still a team aspect in that because you need to get a team score
Yeah.
at the end for competitions. Um, but you're also trying to win the all around as an individual.
Yeah.
So it's just as much an individual sport as it is a team sport,
Hmm.
and that goes the whole way up. And so, yeah, mentally, it can really take a toll on you. It can, you have to have the right body type, and you have to make sure you have the right skills to be able to put all those combinations together. You have to the amount of hours you have to put in.
Mm.
You're sacrificing training 4 or 5 hours a day with having social life or going out and going to youth group or going out to birthday parties or just hanging out with friends on weeknights and weekends and
Yeah.
stuff. So it is a big sacrifice, and it was one that was also a big sacrifice for my family as well. And
Mm.
so when I got to the point of, do I go elite and then pursue Olympic track or not,
Mm.
I started training for it, and then I just saw like the toll that it was taking on my family. And it's like, I keep getting injured, first of all.
Yeah.
Like, there was always something that hurt, and I just don't want to make that big. Like, that would also mean training 50 hours a week and having to go on so many international competitions, things like that. And I was just like, I don't think I can do that much.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to love the sport and enjoy it. And there are times where I surely wanted to quit. And I was like, I'm so over this.
Yeah.
But then I had good people. I had my parents that would support me, my brothers, my coaches. They were like, no, this is just a season. You can push through. I would even have these like mental blocks too, where I'm like, a skill that I've been doing for years and years and years, and terrified to do it because I'm like, oh, what if I fall? What if I injure myself? And so, yeah, it's definitely like a mental game too, and it can really throw off like even what happened with Simone in the Olympics, and having that mental block is just, it's a real thing, and it happens. And so yeah, I think, but in college, it was actually more of, the focus was more on the team aspect and not as much on the individual. So we were competing against different universities to win as a team and not as, okay, who's our star and who can we just have one person win the all around or win every event. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of it took a little bit of an adjustment to go from a very individualized concept throughout middle school, high school, to now it's all about the team.
Yeah.
And so it took us a little while to figure that out. And like I said, there was seasons where we were not unified at all as a team.
Yeah.
And then there were some pretty cool my senior year was probably the best that we were unified as a team, which led, and it showed because it led us to make nationals as a team, which we had never done before at that university.
Yeah.
There'd be individual girls that would qualify to nationals, but as a whole team, we had never done so. So that was like a record-breaking thing also, which was pretty cool. And so we were able to go out to Seattle, Washington to compete. And
Nice.
that was awesome. But yeah, so there's definitely things that mentally it can really, really bring you down. And then it just depends on who you have beside you that are going to lift you up and who are going to come beside you in those times of mental blocks or just like feeling overwhelmed and stressed, and because you still have a full course load of classes you have to take and studying and exams. And for me, if you're in the education department, you had to like go off and do these observations or student teaching, and then so it's like a full-time job, going to classes all day, then practice in the middle of the night, in the midday, and then either having a night class or having to work or study. So yeah, it definitely showed, and I'm thankful for the sport because it helped grow like organization skills, time management, just a lot of like core life skill things needed to be able to survive now. So it's been good. But
no, I completely understand that. So when you were going then from your senior year, and these people were speaking into your life, and those things were happening, you obviously graduated from Westchester. Congratulations.
Why, thank you.
And then you kind of took a little bit of a break period here and there. And the next time that I was talking to you after I had experienced college chica for so many years was that you changed. You had this like good change to you. You were working through a lot of personal demons. You were working through a lot of things in your life, and I don't even know how we got to talking like again about that, and then we ended up. I decided to run something called Church in the Woods.
Oh yeah.
What was that? 3 years ago, or two or 3 years
Gosh,
ago?
no, it has to be longer than that because I've been out 4 years now.
That was 4 years ago. Yeah.
Well,
Oh my
4 or 5
gosh,
years. I
that's
know.
crazy. It seems like it was yesterday.
All right.
And I asked if you wanted to kind of co-do it with me,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up being the hottest day on record in the United States that day, and we didn't even go to the woods. I just had everybody come here,
Yeah.
actually in this room before it was a podcast room, and
Yeah.
we had nice air conditioning on and food, and some cool things happened. But I'm getting ahead of myself with that. But why I wanted to bring that up was, so that transition period, then when those women were speaking into your life, all those things were happening to you. You were kind of healing your spiritual body with the Lord. You decided then to do something really drastic that I don't think anybody ever saw coming from you.
Oh yeah.
And
I didn't see it coming from myself. Gosh.
so the next thing I know, she is getting ready to go to Thailand, and use her teaching degree, and got hooked up with a ministry out there. And it's kind of like a full circle, honestly, from the beginning of when you were talking about,
Yeah.
working with special needs kids when you were younger to what you're doing now. So I'm explaining a little bit too much of it. I'll let you explain a little bit more. But what made you? What was like? I'm going to Thailand.
Oh boy, that was all God.
Yeah.
Because it was not me whatsoever. Yeah, when I was, I guess, just picking up again in that fall semester, when I was really wrestling between, okay, do I give my life to Christ? Do I not give my life? Like, I was like, if he really knew all the sin that I had done, like, I distinctly remember talking to my mentor. I was like, yes, but Kim, if he really knew, there's no way he was going to forgive all of that. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even forgive myself
Yeah.
for all the sins I've done these past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And she's like, but he does.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. He does. If you believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins are forgiven.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but if he really
But hold on.
you're
Wait a
not
minute.
understanding. It's just like, so we read scripture about it, and it's like, you just have to believe.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to put yourself above God by saying that if he really knew, which he does,
Yeah.
because he was in it with you the entire time.
Yeah.
If he really knew, and he's still forgiving you, if you're not going to forgive yourself, then you're essentially putting yourself above God. And you're saying you're more powerful than him. And I was like, oh, well, crap.
Wow. That's some like eye-opening stuff right there.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, fine. We'll try this out and see how it goes. So rededicate my life, and then and I'm like a baby in my faith. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know Bible. It's intimidating for me.
I don't know Bible.
I'm like, I know your John 3:16. I know your story of Noah
Yeah.
and Jonah and all that, but I don't know
Yeah.
like what this even means or how it applies to my life. But in the midst of that, there was it's kind of like a job fair, but it was for summer missions.
Okay.
At the university. So they kind of split it up based on your major. So I went to the ones for education. And just like peeked around. I was like, you know what? I never really got to do any mission trip growing up because of gymnastics, and I'm coming to my senior year. I'm going to retire. I'm probably not going to have a job once I graduate college anyway. So why not go on something for like 2 weeks and do like a VBS or an English camp or something, real easy. And then I got connected with a couple organizations, had meetings with them, just kind of fill it out. And one of them, which I'm with now, Teach Beyond, I just had really good conversation with the recruiter there, and just felt like the whole time the Holy Spirit was just like, this is it. This is the one.
Yeah.
But also wrestling with, at the time I'm dating someone, and like we're planning our life together and what's going to happen after I graduate and what life is going to look like for us. And so I'm like I'm sitting there. I remember we were at a Panera Bread, and I'm sitting in this lunch, and she's giving me a moment to like think it over and things. And I just feel like God was like presenting me with these two options of like, okay, you can continue the path that you're going and have a comfortable life, but it wouldn't be a purposeful life. Or you can trust me and go all in with me and see what I can do and live a purposeful life. And so I was just like, well, when you put it that way, I don't know. So, she was just started telling me about the different opportunities of ways to serve. And I was like, look, I just want to do something for 2 weeks. I just want to be able to go do like a VBS or an English camp or something. She's like, okay, yeah, I can set you with up, but our real need we're looking for teachers. That's what we need. We need teachers.
And somebody has a degree in teaching.
Yeah, right. And she's like, there are a lot of international schools or schools in other countries that are in true need. And I'm so aware. I think the Holy Spirit just took over with me because I was just like, oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Sign me up. How long do you need me for? And she's like, well, you can kind of pick how. I was like, 2 years. Let's do that. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, what country do you want to go to?
Which is nothing like her, by the way, to do something like that.
I couldn't even go out of state from home. I picked a university that was 45 minutes from home, so I could go home on the weekends. Like, what in the world? Who am I? John was supposed to be the world traveler, and I was going to join the military and just stay home.
Yeah.
And roles reversed, but so she gave me, I was like, what are the countries that are in the most needs? And so she like showed them to me, and I was like, okay, I will go anywhere. I was like, I'll go anywhere but Asia. And because I just associated Asia with China. I was like, I don't want to go to China.
Yeah.
So she showed me the different countries. There's 3 of them. Thailand was on the list, and so it was between Thailand, Czech Republic, or Germany. And so I was like, okay, just wherever the most need is. Let's do that. So I still had to like go through the process of joining Teach Beyond, but with in mind that I would be going as a teacher.
Basically like a guarantee that this will be happening.
Yeah. So I didn't even tell my parents about this. I was just like, I'm probably not going to, they're going to see how young I am in my faith. They're going to see all my track record. I'm not going to get accepted here. So it's just like, okay, this was a good run. So didn't even think anything of it. Went home for winter break and spent the holidays with my family and friends. And then I get an email in between Christmas and New Year's saying that I got accepted with Teach Beyond.
Nice.
Congratulations, right? And they're like, we want to send you to Thailand. And I was like, shoot, I should probably tell my parents about this now. Probably get that. I was like, shoot. And then I get
especially
these realizations.
Your mom, just like if you wouldn't have told her, that'd be so funny. Be like, okay, guys, I'll be back in 2 years. Where are you going? Oh, just Thailand.
I'll be out of here. And then especially like, shoot, I don't own a passport. Like, there's a few steps I need to take before I get there.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yeah, we're gonna send your application out to the different schools in Thailand, for this next year. Yeah. So I was like, shoot, this is like August they're talking about. And so I was like, getting ready to start student teaching. Yeah. From January till April. And then it was like my last season of competing with gymnastics and like just wrapping up with everything. And so I tell my parents, I call my mom and I tell her, and she's like, oh, haha, nice prank. You're funny. And I was like, yeah, nope. You're going to be laughing when I send you this email. So I sent her the email of like, congratulations getting to Teach Beyond, and we want to send you to Thailand and all these things. She calls me back. Man. She's like, what are you thinking?
One of the funniest reaction videos still to this day in my heart is when you came back from Thailand the first time on Mother's Day, didn't tell your mom.
Oh, yeah. And, oh, man, we should have pulled that up.
I know, we should have pulled it up and showed it. And she's just like, oh, man.
I know.
You're
we're
such
in the
a
middle.
Loving family.
I know. She starts screaming. I'm like, Mom, calm down. Like, I start getting embarrassed. So it was great.
You got accepted there. Now, the reason I wanted to stop telling the story about the church in the woods thing, well, church at my house, is because when we did that, it was actually your first time ever, like, kind of teaching. We did James, my favorite book out of the Bible.
Yes, so good.
It was kind of your first time teaching in that aspect, and something cool happened. Colby Hall, who was the first ever video podcast on here. If you haven't seen it yet, please go check it out because he has an amazing testimony as well.
Mm-hmm.
That morning at church, he felt like something was telling him not to tithe that morning, not to give offering that morning, that he would need it for something else. And then he comes here for that, and we announced to everybody that you were going to Thailand in 2 months. And he's just like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this, but like the Lord told me not to tithe this morning, and I just prayed about it, and this is for you. And it was a good sum of money too, to help you, fund you to go to Thailand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was such a cool experience, and I was like, what am I getting myself into again? Like, because I don't know how to support raise. I don't even know what that really means. Like, okay, I'm going overseas, I'm not getting paid, I need to fundraise my own self. Oh no, I have to basically set myself or find partners that are going to come beside me and support the ministry that I'm not quite sure that I know about that I'm doing it either, because I had all these grand things. It's like, oh, I'm going to teach, and I'm going to help fight human trafficking, and I'm going to save the world. And I was like, oh, my pride got checked real fast as soon as I got there.
Well, I was going to say, what was it like then for you when you stepped foot in Thailand for the first time? What was emotionally going on for you? What was physically going on for you? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was a hard process, I'm not going to lie, because I graduated in May, and then I had 6 weeks to raise support for 2 years of being out there. And for someone who has never done missions or support raising or anything, I was like, I'm way over my head. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard process. The week I was supposed to leave, I ended up getting there a week late, which was still fine because it was just like orientation staff meetings and stuff. But I was supposed to leave on a Saturday. I remember that. And that Monday, I was still only at 30% of my support raising that I needed to get there. And my organization wouldn't let you fly until you had at least 90% of your support raised.
Back, yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'm not going.
Yeah.
All of it just started nothing. I had plateaued. Nothing was going on. And so it was a true test of my faith. And later on, learning about how it actually was a true test of my dad's faith, too, because it really grew him. And it's something he never told me about until I had gotten back on furlough last time.
Yeah.
Within a matter of 3 days, God provided to get me from 30% to 90% so I can get on that plane on
Praise
Saturday.
the Lord. Wow.
And it was just like, wow, okay. And I just remember this verse, Ephesians 3:20, where it's like, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we could ever hope or imagine, all glory to God forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
And so I just kept remembering this. I was like, okay, God, I mean, if this is where you really want me to go, how am I supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And I just remember him telling me, this is not going to be on your own strength. You're never going to be able to do this on your own strength.
Yeah.
You have to put your whole trust and faith in me. And so in that process, and then seeing it go in 3 days from 30 to 90 was like, okay, God, this is you. For sure this is you, because I would have never been able to do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I get to get on the plane. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm tired. I'm emotionally what is culture shock like? What am I going to do? I'm going to be out in the jungle. I'm going to have to take a bucket shower. This is gross.
I'll have to wear a loincloth and make a spear out of wood.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I was just being so dramatic in it.
Yeah.
And, but we get off the plane. I get there, of course, flight's delayed. I don't get there until midnight, and I have to be at staff meetings the next day. And I'm I get off. So graciously, my roommates that I was living with at the time picked me up. A couple of my other Teach Beyond team members went out and stayed and waited for me to arrive and welcomed me in. It was awesome. And we pull out of the airport, and the first stop sign or stoplight that we get to, there's a McDonald's at the corner there. And I was like, I think it would be okay. I'm like, okay, something familiar. And then
that's the national sign of reassurance. You see a McDonald's sign, you're like,
yeah, not that I've ever gone to a McDonald's out there, but it's okay, I'm gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that first year though, it's like you are just trying to survive because you're in a new country. You're going through all the culture shock of language barrier and trying to navigate and figuring out how to drive on the opposite side of the road and not get killed. And and just having to seriously like die to yourself every day because I'm pretty independent. Like if I need to figure something out, I think I can do it. But there it's just like I need help.
There it's a whole different story because you're just like, oh,
so
what
much
do I do?
help. Yeah,
I can't just go home. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like it's not only my first time overseas, it's my first time teaching, it's my first time living truly on my own as an adult. And so it's just like my year of firsts for everything. Just throw it all in.
I mean, you just got like tossed
Hammered.
right into the shark water. And God was like, I'm going to be with you through it. Just trust me.
Yes, for sure. So there is like that roller coaster that goes up and down and all around. And it just
all over the place.
Yeah. For those that first year, really. And then I was like, okay, it's only 2 years. I can do this. I can survive.
And then, not only that, but like, I mean, like you said, you were so young in the faith too. Like this didn't happen to where you had any chance to prepare yourself. Like you were continuously learning along the way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of people need to hear this for like that may not believe in spiritual attacks or things that happen that are demonic, of things that don't want you in an area where they know that they have control of. Because I think that's backed up a lot, especially in the Bible with, Daniel and the, the prince of the different nations and things of that. But something that you told me when we had our first FaceTime together was you had a spiritual attack happen to you, I think within the first couple of weeks that you were there. And you can expand on that as much as you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to, because I know it's very personal
I'm
to
happy
you.
To share.
But it's something that I feel like would help people, especially that are thinking of getting into missions or don't know, like, for some reason in America, and this is just my observation and my opinion, like, I think spiritual attacks happen in a different way because we are so rooted in self and pride and nostalgia of the things that are of the world that we don't recognize them as what spiritual attacks may be. Because this is the first time that you have experienced anything like that. And the only time that I've ever experienced anything like that was when I was very, very young. So for you to tell me that story, it brought back up of like, oh, that's still real.
Yeah, it's like you just said, it's not anything like you would hear sermons about it, about spiritual warfare and attacks and things like that. It's like, is that really a thing? And it's like, oh yeah, that is a thing. So the first couple weeks there, just because it was so taxing and I was like physically spent, emotionally spent, trying to like get through teaching and figuring out life there, it was really hard. Like I just lost all desire to learn the Bible or wanting to be in prayer or going to church and things like that. And so it took a lot of work, and actually I was blessed to be able to get a discipler who ended up like walking beside me and helping me throughout that first year. And then going into my second year we were doing this training, and now Thailand is like 98% Buddhist. So there are temples every like 100 feet. And there's Buddhist monuments all over the place and spirit houses in every house. And so you just kind of feel like this heaviness when you first get there. And I feel like God just really like gave me his heart for hurting for these people that are worshiping these false gods. And so but anyways, we were up at a retreat to do our staff training for the second year upcoming, and we actually were fortunate enough to have some founders from Chick-fil-A come out and do a training for us called Lead Like Jesus. Nice. And so we were just doing some team building and training on that. And while we were there was just like halfway through one of the sessions, there was an exercise we were doing where we would sitting in a chair, and then people would come behind us and they would whisper truth, scripture or a statement of truth into us. And so the whole time I'm sitting there, I was just every time someone would say something, I was like, that's not for me, or no, or this doesn't apply to me. And I was just kind of like rejecting each of them. And then I just felt like my heart started racing, and I was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I don't, there's something wrong. I'm not qualified to be here. I shouldn't be here. I'm not good enough to be here. All of these people were so much more Christian or so much more better at teaching or whatever it may be. I just started comparing myself to all of them.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just leaving the session. I didn't tell anybody. I just left. Someone saw me walk out, though, and she followed me, and she's like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, that exercise was just too weird. Like, I just don't feel like I am qualified or that I should be here.
Yeah.
And she's like, I feel like you have something spiritual going on. I think you need to go back to your room and just like either pray or just take a break and then come join us afterwards. I was like, okay. So I get back to my room and I'm just sitting there and I'm just trying to like process through it. And then at some point, like, I don't even know what happened. I just remember that I am like laying face down on the floor and I cannot move. I'm like trying to push myself up, and I just feel like there are like 16 different people just standing on top of me, and I physically could not get up. And so now I'm like in a panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Am I going crazy?
Yeah.
Or what's happening? And it's just like these different people are standing on top of me. I'm pinned down, and they're just like screaming lies at me. Like, but scary enough, it was my voice. Like, all I could hear was my voice saying, you're not good enough, you're not lovable, your voice doesn't matter, nobody cares about you. And it was just like all of these lies that I didn't know I actually believed about myself just coming up. And it was, I don't even know how long. I'm like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, Lord help me. And it takes me a while, but I finally like get myself together and went right back down and found the leaders there. And I was like, I don't know what just happened to me, but here's the situation, and I'm freaked out. And so the leaders of our school and also some of the leaders from like Jesus, they all came beside me and they prayed for me, and they actually like went over and prayed over my room then, because I was like, I don't even know, I don't want to be here anymore, like, I can't do this. But I ended up staying the rest of the weekend, and I left the next day. But it was scary. Like, and it was a real thing. That was my first ever real spiritual attack. And it was just like, it was really eye-opening for me to see, like, okay, if this is happening to me, surely this is happening to others and around the world. And what can I do now? And so it took me on another journey of like combating those lies and getting mentors and a good core group of women around me to be able to journey through life. And so that when I would have these mental blocks of believing those lies again, letting them know, and then either them praying over me or just reminding me of truth to combat it. And so it wasn't easy. Surely it was a hard time, but I've definitely grown from it, and I'm no longer in that season, and just want to be able to now come beside other people and be able to help them during their time of either needs or times of really spiritual warfare as well, especially this younger generation, as it's really evident too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know that was a hard time. So I know we talked
Yeah.
probably like right after it happened. And,
Yeah.
it was it's something that you don't really like. I think like when we think of spiritual attacks, we're like demons are coming out of the ground and scratching you and all this and everything.
Yeah.
And but like in that moment, like they had made you, like it made it seem like it was your voice, saying these things and lying to you. And that's something that is just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But the good news is you got through it. You
Praise
persevered.
God.
And you stayed in Thailand. And as you said in the beginning, you've been there for 4 years now teaching. And not only just teaching, you're teaching special education students. Something that has been on your heart, obviously, since the beginning. What's that like teaching there? Just to fill in a couple more of the gaps. She has her own house there now still. She learned how to drive on the right side of the road. She took up Muay Thai. actually.
Hey, I
Yeah.
did for a
So which
little
is actually
bit.
pretty
Yep, I'm transitioning into
pretty cool.
CrossFit now,
Oh,
so
nice.
I know.
So what's it like being there, being a teacher, taking care of special education students too? Because even though that you had some experience with it, I mean, I feel like that's a big challenge, especially now. Like you said, just your line of stuff is so crazy to me. Like just how much got piled on because. You're fresh in the faith. You're going to another country. You're
Mhm.
teaching for the first time ever. You're being a missionary for the first time ever.
Yeah,
And on top of that, now you have to teach special education
I
students
know,
too. Like,
right?
yeah, what
Just
was
keep
that?
them coming. No, I'm just
keep
kidding.
it keep it all coming.
No, we could stop for a while. I could use
I
a
need
break.
just a little bit of a break. So what was that
Uh,
like, doing that, and
mm,
how fulfilling has that been for you now? Because I know, like, the updates that you give us, the stories that you bring back about your kids, it's so cool just to hear
yeah.
them and hear just the things that God's not only doing in their life, but your life along with
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, these my first 2 years, I actually taught third grade, and I loved it. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. And then coming to the end of my 2 years, I was thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go home, figure out life there. And then there was a need for a special needs teacher
Hmm.
at the school, and
Oh, that's right.
so
You started out not in special needs.
right,
That's
yeah,
right.
I started
Okay.
in third
Yeah.
grade.
And just for the people at home, this isn't just Thailand native kids. You have
Right.
you have children from missionary families, from other families that are just living there
Right.
that are in this program.
Yeah, yeah. So our school is unique in that it's actually more focused for missionary families
Hmm.
because half of all families leave the mission field early because they're not getting a quality education for their kids.
Childcare, yeah.
So, a school, Grace International School, we provide that quality education for missionary families so that it provides an opportunity for them to stay on the field in the areas that they are doing their ministry and serving with.
Yeah.
So 80% of our students there are from missionary families, and then we also have a population of national Thai that also attend the school.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we provide that just to be able to have called staff. So all of the Westerners that work at the school, they are all missionaries.
Hmm.
So they're all called to be there. We don't get paid by the school. The National Thai staff, they do, but all the missionaries that work there do not. So my first 2 years there, doing third grade, and now there was a need for special needs. We had a few students that have unique needs, and the girl that was doing it, her term was ending, so she was returning back to the States. And so I was like, I have this dual degree. I've gotten a couple years under my belt with regular ed. I would like to get some experience in special ed too, just to kind of see which one I feel called to more.
Mm-hmm.
So I took on the challenge of doing special ed, and we were creating this brand new program. It's called the RISE program. And so my role is more with like moderate to severe needs.
Mm.
So I have kids with Down syndrome and autism and isocentric 15, which is a crazy thing, crazy type of uh, disability. But these kids are just amazing.
Yeah.
They're just so fun to be around, and I absolutely love it. It's been a crazy 2 years,
Mm.
but it's been one that has just really filled my life, and it's been really life-giving for me. And
Yeah.
just knowing that if I'm helping to provide a way for their families to stay on the field, then that is what God is calling me to. That is my purpose for this time and for this season.
Yeah.
So last year I had 7 students. I'll dropping down to 5 this year.
Mm.
So I have 3 kids for that are missionary families, and then 2 that are national Thai.
Okay.
And so they're all different grades. They all have different abilities. And so my job really is to get to know them individually to figure out what their strengths, what their preferences are, and then base curriculum around those strengths and
Yeah.
goals. And so I create much like the States, I create their IEPs, I create their learning plans. We are actually blessed to have one-to-one aides for each of them. So they each have their own aide that will push them into the classroom for like specials and PE and music and art and help them go to lunch. And if there are classes that they can do in their grade level, then their aide will push them into that. So like Bible or math, if they're capable of doing that, they'll go there. When they come see me, I focus more on life skills, their IEP goals, and then core subjects, so reading, math, and writing. So
nice.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of trial and error the past couple of years, but I feel like we're getting a pretty good foundation under our belt now. We actually am fortunate to have a family that brought their therapy dog over from America with them. So
wow.
We're blessed to have Lexi, the golden retriever, come once a week, and the kids, it really helps them ease with their anxiety, and then they get to read to her. So I'll have like a station where they get one-on-one time with Lexi. It's only like 10 minutes, but they can read to her, read a story, build their confidence, or just chill and like help them self-regulate themselves again if need be. So yeah,
that's so cool.
It's oh man,
I don't think I've ever seen you this happy before. Just doing this, seriously, like doing this stuff. It's so cool to watch like everything come to
full circle. I mean, it's awesome. And even just like bonuses of I'm able to coach sports. So I've coached soccer out there. I'm currently coaching volleyball out there. I'm able to mentor girls in high school out there. I did a Bible study this past summer for just any other ladies that were still in Chiang Mai. And so, there are things so many opportunities that God's been giving me just to see what are my true talents and what are my true strengths, and then how can I use that to glorify Him and advance His kingdom while I'm out there. And so, I just love being able to journey alongside people and love them well. And I just always am reminded of my therapist whenever things are hard, and how she just loved me where I was at in my darkest time. She came beside me, and I want to be able to do that and be a light to other people wherever I go.
And I think that that's the true meaning of life and the true gospel. I shouldn't bring this up, but I'm going to. But there's an acquaintance of mine that I know of who is on this just riff right now of we should be kicking people out of the church or this, that, and the third, because that's what Paul said to do, and that's what this, said to do, and everything like that. And I just don't think that that's what Jesus taught. And I think that loving people where they are, and not like doing a little pat on the head thing, but kind of what your therapist was doing. Like, she knew you were going through these things. And to like blaspheme somebody, or to like, be like, you are a dirty, rotten sinner, and you need to give your life to Christ. That doesn't work.
They
I'm
don't
sorry,
need
it
to
just
hear
doesn't.
that. It's not going to be received.
And that's the truth, and the only reason I can say that is because I grew up in the church, and when I walked away, even though I still believed in a God, I'll say, I wasn't following His ways. I believed in the Christian God the whole entire time, and people will try to tell me, no, you didn't, because you were doing this, that, and a third. It's not the things that are the sin. It's the heart behind it of why I'm doing this. And it was an escape to try and find truth. And I think when we can start recognizing that, like your therapist did with you, ultimately saw reconciliation with your coach, with yourself, and God took it over and put you all the way in a different country where you were needed most. And I think that's the true gospel right there, of really watching God shine through that moment. So Thailand, just before we wrap up, it's technically an open country, right? It's
like one of the only open countries in this 1040 window.
Because you are near like Vietnam and places of that nature where you can't even say the word Jesus or mention anything.
Have like Q words or like code words that they would use instead. So, fortunately, Thailand, where we are allowed to share the gospel openly, we're allowed to have church anywhere. I mean, my church is in a safari zoo right now, and so like it's really cool. But there's still a need, as much as God is working, and He's working in miraculous ways out there. It's incredible. especially what a lot of what's going on with Myanmar and us being on the border with Burma and all of that's going on with the war out there. He's definitely doing a lot of work, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Yeah. So there's still plenty of people that need to know who God is and how much he loves them and how much he wants to be in relationship with them.
Yeah.
So
what I know you sent out a newsletter and everything, and just to give a little bit more update on Kristen here. She's here in the States for the next 6 months, which I'm excited about. We called up we called up for coffee this morning. We still got a lot more time to catch up on some things, but during these 6 months, she's going to need some support and some help for continuing this ministry. And I know that you are not the type to promote yourself or to get any type of help at all.
As we discussed this morning, yes, it is still
even when you first started doing it. But the Lord is faithful. He got you there before, and I know that He's going to get you through it this time. So this isn't like a call for give us money. This is a call for I wanted you to share your story so people can really see how God has been working through you and why we need to support people like you, because we all aren't the hands and the feet of the body.
Right.
You know, we each have a different role in this. So how can people support you now? And then I have a little bit of an exciting announcement in a little bit, but go ahead.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I have a newsletter where I send quarterly updates. It'll be video form. I send you a link to a YouTube video and just give you an update just so you can hear my voice, see where I'm at, and I feel like it's a little bit easier to listen to, so people can subscribe to that. I also have a giving page where people can donate to. You can do annually, monthly, bi-monthly, however you feel called to give or however the Lord prompts you to. They're able to do that. And then I am working on making a Facebook page. I had one, but I need to, because even though Thailand's open, I still want to, for the security of my students, I'm going to create a private one. So I'm in the process of making that right now.
Okay.
So
I will have all of those links down in the description below so you can help support Miss Chica. Also, to help you, if anybody in the Lancaster, Ephrata, Gap, or Parksburg, or any other area that's around Gap, our home church, my home church, Gap Community Church, I called my pastor this morning. He should have by now confirmed in text, and I'm going to hopefully just step out on a limb here and say this is going to go through. Regardless, we're going to do something. But December 10th is the day right now. We are going to be holding a fundraiser for Miss Kristen Torres there at the World Mission Cafe. So if anybody can come by for that, come out, help support. We don't know what we're going to do yet, so maybe she'll do a song and dance for you guys, and you'll just throw money in a hat. I'll make some
Thai dishes. You can try out some Thai food.
Some Thai food.
Brought some coffee back from a village I
got some
there.
really great goodies from Thailand from her this morning, so I can't wait to try those.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I have one final question for you.
Oh, no.
If there was anybody out there that was listening to this that didn't know the love of Yeshua Messiah, what would you say to that person?
Ooh.
Oh.
What would I say? Man, if there are people out there listening that didn't know, I would just say that he does love you. He created you, and he has a plan and a purpose for you. And no, he's not going to force you into anything. It is your choice, but it is the best choice I've ever made in my life to follow him and to pursue a life with him. And I guarantee you it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be just a walk in the park and you're going to pray and receive everything you ever wanted, and God's just going to give you the lavish life you want. But he will come beside you in those dark times and even in the great times, and he's going to bless you more than you can ever imagine. Going back to Ephesians 3:20, like, God is going to do immeasurably more than you can ever hope or imagine. And so just like having that truth and knowing, like, okay, my plans may not be his plans, but his plans are always so much better. And it just encourage people with that, and just to know that how much he loves you. Like, My gosh, there are times that I struggled with really believing that, but when I feel it, it is just like it is all encompassing, and it's just something you've never experienced before, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I want to say this too. The whole story that you just heard today, I mean, we could go on for hours and hours because there's so much more to it, but I think we touched enough of a basis. But to let people know out there that are listening, that I can tell you this truthfully, that this is one of the realest people I've ever met. And when she says what she's saying there at the end, it's so true. I feel like some people just have this perception of Christians in their mind, and a lot of that is manifested on this podcast with some of the people I have on. And I'm not trying to speak bad on any of those people because I know that they truly believe, but it would look like what we would call a typical Christian. And your story though of I was there with you through that. I experienced those times. So for her to say that, it isn't just this whole Jesus loves you kind of thing. I mean, it's true that God is out there and he does love you. And he will meet you where you are because he's meeting us right now where we are in our doubts and our sin. Sin doesn't go away when you accept Christ, and these things don't go away. It's the heart and the pride of man is really what draws all sin, and out of it flows, So it's so cool to watch you come around to this for us both to be here. I mean, I shouldn't even be here right now. And just been so blessed with him tolerating me and my stupidness and, being a brat, as you say. with
oh
it.
my gosh. There are just times where I come up to my mom like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. It's just like, what was I thinking?
I was such a brat.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's great to have you back. I have missed you.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You are one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life, and I love our friendship. And we could not talk for months, and obviously we're 2,000 miles away from each other, and we still find time to catch up. And it's just been so cool to, watch you grow in that, watch you grow in faith. Because I know that there's been some doubting times over in Thailand too, where it's just like, how am I going to get out of this? But you stuck through. You went through the storm, and here you are.
Here I am. Yep. I'm sure this more to come.
Again, December 10th, we'll have something at Gap Community Church. I'll put all the links in the description down below if you feel led to support Kristen. Again, we are not asking for any money right now. Please check her out on Facebook, Kristen Torres, get to know a little bit more about her story with the newsletters and things like that through the links. If you feel led to give, we would highly appreciate that she can continue her ministry.
Yeah.
As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube at Wallace Production, WALLESS Production. There is a Patreon account too. If you want to help support the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Every time that you subscribe, you are supporting the channel, and by supporting the channel, you are supporting the ministry that we are doing here to give you the best quality that we can and get you more guests on here that we can too as well to share their amazing story. If anybody wants to come on, feel free to message me. You don't have to be a Christian. I don't niche this as a Christian podcast because I love everybody and I want everybody to come on and tell their story. So,
love that.
Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
This
was fun.
Was it? Are you sure?
Well, after I settled in, it became fun.
She was so nervous when we were about to start. It was just like, oh no. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I love you all. Have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye.